Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on this Christmas Day, December 25th, 2021. I'm Peter Chan here at the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this holiday edition. If you want additional weather information, you can always go to weather.gov/Alaska. There's all sorts of things online that can help further dive into some of the details as to the forecast that I'm explaining. In the weather headlines for this Christmas holiday, we continue to see winter storm conditions, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories in effect for snow and freezing rain. We've had a push of mild air come in off of the Bering Sea. It's crossed up through the southwest interior. This air is warm, moisture laden, and mild. When it encounters the colder air, first falls as snow, and then as the depth of that warmer air pushes farther inland, you get on the backside of the heavier precipitation shield, freezing rain mixing in, and even precipitation changing over just plain old rain, especially along the southwest coast where temperatures have risen above freezing. But the greatest threat or concentration for some areas of heavier snow and then also some freezing rain in some of the valleys will be there in central and south central interior portions of the state, especially Anchorage northward as you drive up there through the Alaska Highway through Denali Park and north through Healy, Nenana, and on over toward Fairbanks. Otherwise, it's been a cold and quiet Christmas in the Panhandle, and that'll continue at least into the daytime on Sunday, though some snow is on the way for portions of the Panhandle Sunday night into Monday morning, and it's looking like we could see below normal temperatures, especially across southeastern portions of the state, including the Panhandle, really returning in force early next year, right after the new year. But here's a quick check of some of the webcams. Nenana there at 12 above with some light snow and fog, but as warmer air arrives, especially late tonight and during the day on Monday, we're going to see snow mixed with and change over to some freezing rain. And already a few inches of snow has fallen in the Fairbanks area. They're still looking to get about 10 or so inches of snow, but then on top of that, some freezing rain later tonight and during the day on Sunday. And then up the Susitna Valley, Skawentna, there 16 degrees. The cloud cover is thickening, and areas from around Willow northward through Talkeetna on up toward Healy and Nenana has the best potential of picking up some significant freezing rain, perhaps upwards of a quarter and locally over a quarter of an inch of icing as we go through very late tonight and especially during the day on Sunday into Sunday evening. As a result, we have widespread winter storm warnings that continue from the Alcan border and along the Arctic coast westward. And those will remain in place. Areas like McGrath, Galena will continue until early Sunday morning, and areas like Bettles on over toward Fairbanks, Fort Yukon will continue until late Sunday night. Areas further south in yellow, we have winter weather advisory for some freezing rain there. As I mentioned, the Anchorage Bowl, as well as down toward Seward and Whittier, and also east along the Glen Allen Highway, including Glen Allen, Upper Copper River Basin. Most of the freezing rain potential, especially Anchorage, we're only talking a few hundredths to maybe a tenth of an inch of icing. The area from around Willow north to Talkeetna on up toward Healy could pick up a quarter of an inch of icing, so that would make for some very hazardous driving, especially Sunday into Sunday evening. The other area is there in the Panhandle. There's a wind chill advisory in effect through morning there at White's Pass, but the area Juneau southward through Sitka, Ketchikan is going to have a winter weather advisory for some snow, and that'll come though Sunday night into Monday morning, at least maybe 3-5 inches of snow. In the news today too, the James Webb Space Telescope was launched out of French Guiana. NASA reports a successful launch. It's going to take a while to get all the things deployed. This particular space telescope is going to sit 1 million miles away from Earth. That's more than 4 times the distance the moon. And we hope in about 6 months to start to get the first images from this remarkable telescope. So stay tuned. But that was an exciting day for NASA today, and those of you interested in astronomy. Well, looking at the satellite imagery, we continue to see that moisture spreading inland up through the Yukon River into the central interior of the state, with more moisture back out there over the Bering. And as we put the satellite in motion again, you can see there's also some moisture down there toward the Kenai and down off of Kodiak Island. There's a weak low that's kind of going to take place there in the Gulf. The warm front continues to work its way up toward the central interior, so along and just behind that front we expect to see some freezing rain, and that will expand eastward and also south into the Susitna Valley, even perhaps down into the Anchorage area here and parts of the eastern Kenai Peninsula as we go through the day on Sunday into Sunday evening. And overnight we see the warm front, as I mentioned, continuing to slowly creep east-northeastward. A steady flow of moisture coming in off the Bering through at least the southwest interior and mainland, where temperatures are going to be definitely above freezing, especially tomorrow. And then that front just kind of stalls out and waits for the next low there up along the Kamchatka coast, as well as another low that's out there toward the western Bering. So chilly night tonight in the northern panhandle along the inner canals toward the mountains. Temperatures are going to be in the single digits, even some sub-zero readings. In fact, this afternoon it's only 3 below at the Juneau Weather Service forecast office, which is kind of tucked away back toward the glacier, whereas the airport was 15 above, which was closer toward the channels there. And you can see temperatures are coming up in the west there, and then for Sunday afternoon should get temperatures back up a little bit above freezing in the Anchorage area, but only 29 at Talkeetna, so that'll keep the freezing rain going. But look at the 40-degree readings along and west and south of the Alaska Range. Monday morning lows will be milder in all areas, even coming up into the teens there through the Panhandle, as we do expect there to be some snow falling there Sunday night into Monday morning. And then temperatures Monday afternoon should be above freezing generally from Cordova and Valdez and Anchorage westward, with some 40-degree readings, and in fact could be as warm as 48 there at Kodiak. Cold temperatures continue across the Yukon Flats, well below zero. But notice those temperatures creeping up above freezing up along the Yukon River, and we should see some highs getting up close to 40 degrees on the west and north side of the Alaska Range toward the Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers, whereas readings will stay single digits along the Arctic coast. Chilly Monday morning along the Arctic coast. There's going to be another little push of colder air up there. Otherwise, temperatures are going to begin to retreat, come down there across and especially south of the Yukon River. Though still some temperatures near freezing along the Yukon, or I should say along the Alaska Range, at least into early Monday. Temperatures Sunday morning above freezing the southwest interior. Look at that, some lower 40s there, all the way up to McGrath, southward through King Salmon, and some 50-degree readings back there toward Dutch Harbor, which again, Unalaska was up near 60 degrees today. And then temperatures Monday morning generally near or above freezing up along the Kuskokwim River Basin, the west side of the Alaska Range, with highs Monday afternoon in the 40s, extending out there across the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians. It's still looking, though, like once we get around and just after the new year, there's going to be a shot of colder air return, especially to the southeast portion of the state, including the Panhandle. I would imagine the pattern's supposed to get a little less, at least in the way of precipitation and storms. So we are looking for precipitation to average near a little bit below normal, especially along the Gulf Coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, now it's time again for your aviation weather, and as I was alluding to yesterday, we are going to see extensive IFR conditions across much of the state in response to a winter storm system that's impacting especially central areas. We've had a surge of warm, moist air come in off the Bering, a warm front working its way on this Christmas Day out of the southwest interior into the central interior. Is going to create areas of heavier snow and, yes, freezing rain. And the freezing rain will be a bigger concern, especially in some of the valleys and areas along and south of the Alaska Range. where we do anticipate potential for some significant surface icing, especially as you go from Nenana south through Haisley and on over down through the Mat-Su Valley into the Anchorage Bowl, especially as we go through later this Christmas Day and night, and then on Sunday into Sunday night. IFR conditions, though, will be widespread across the state Sunday morning and afternoon, covering much of, again, the interior mainland, extending into the Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle, then covering all of the Alaska Peninsula and most of the Aleutians. By Monday morning, the precipitation will begin to diminish, especially along the Alaska Range, but still linger, and we'll see areas of IFR conditions expand across the Panhandle into central and southern areas, with still IFR conditions continuing there along the Alaska Peninsula in through the eastern half of the Aleutians. And by Monday afternoon, there'll be yet another weaker system working its way up through the eastern Bering, so we expect to see IFR conditions continue across the southwest through the Alaska Peninsula and eastern half of the Aleutians. So past conditions for Sunday, look for Anaktuvik as well as Atigan IFR. No changes there as we anticipated. And this will be the case as you drop further south and west. Lake Clark and Merrill will be socked in with IFR conditions. Rainy Pass as we round up through the central and eastern Alaskan Range, IFR also at Windy Pass. Isabel may see still a little MVFR there early in the day Sunday, but becoming IFR. And right now it looks like Mentasta is far enough east will be able to hold on to MVFR conditions on Sunday. But as we drop down further southwest of there, Tenita will see MVFR conditions on the east entrance, but IFR conditions on the west entrance to start Sunday. IFR, though, filling in the pass as we go through the day on Sunday. Similar scenario there for Portage Pass. Definite IFR conditions there in the morning in the west entrance. MVFR becoming IFR through the pass as we go through Sunday later morning and afternoon. And then finally, for the northern Panhandle, Chilkoot and White will see MVFR conditions becoming IFR conditions as we go through Sunday, with those IFR conditions spreading further southward across the Panhandle Sunday night into Monday. So we have a dome of warm, moist air that has come in off of the Bering, and you can see it there up into the southwest portion of the state, freezing levels as high as 10,000 feet there along the southwest coast, and as high as 12,000 feet at around Dutch Harbor in the eastern Aleutians. In fact, Dutch Harbor has had high temperatures in the mid-50s the past couple of days, and that'll continue into Sunday. And as we look at the greatest threat for icing, there could be some significant surface icing, a quarter to locally a third or even a half an inch of icing possible from areas down through the Alaska Range, some of the pockets there, these valleys from Nenana southward through the Mat-Su Valley into the Anchorage Bowl. So keep that in mind, especially as we go through this Saturday night into Sunday night. And we see other areas as you get into the warmer air that rises to a flight level of 18,000 feet there across southwest areas in the core of the warmer air. And here's the upper level winds. We have a large ridge in the upper atmosphere at 30,000 feet. Powerful 190 knot jet dropping out of the north there between Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii, and then on the backside of the ridge, winds upwards to 155 knots over central areas of the state from the southwest. Dropping down to the mid-levels, 9,000 feet, broad winds across much of the mainland, anywhere from about 60 to 80 knots there coming into Bristol Bay and along the west side of the Alaska Peninsula. And then as we get down to 3,000 feet, strongest winds there over the southwest and southeast Bering in through the Alaska Peninsula. That translates to widespread turbulence across central and southwest areas of the state. Likely some severe turbulence anticipated from the southwest interior down through Bristol Bay and in through the eastern half of the Aleutians. So take care and just hold tight here through the long holiday weekend.
Miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission GOLD, the global scale observations of the Limon Disk instrument, to study this region, A region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. Gold connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time, compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
How can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and looking at the sea ice edge today, we continue to have the ice along the western coastline being impacted by more of a southerly flow of air that's turned southwesterly as a result of a frontal system, a warm front that's pushed its way inland up through the southwest interior as it wraps around the west and the northern side of the Alaska range. We expect ice to be shifting around a retreat northward and then relaxing as the winds come down. There'll be another system coming along early next week. So look for this pattern to continue there with the ice, especially along the west coast. Looking at the southeast panhandle here for Sunday, marine forecast, we continue to see northwest or offshore, even northeasterly winds there at Petersburg, gusting up to 35 miles an hour out of the northeast, as there's plenty of cold air sitting up there in northwestern Canada and funneling down through some of the mountains and then through the outer channels. You see winds turning the east-northeast 10 to 15 knots. Waves generally 3-4 feet, and then as we go through Monday, winds will remain generally out of the north, Petersburg up, that's the central and northern portions of the inner channels at 15 to 20 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet, and then offshore flow out of the east, generally around 20 knots there along the Gulf Coast, but some gust upwards of 35 knots possible there south of Craig. And we're looking at waves anywhere from 7 to 9 feet. South central areas, winds a little bit more of a mix. Easterly 15 knots, Prince William Sound, a couple of foot waves, but winds, southwest winds turn southerly as they go up through the ice-free areas of Cook Inlet at 25 to 30 knots with waves as high as 5 to 10 feet there just northwest of Homer. And then on Monday, look for winds to be out of the northwest 15 knots, Prince William Sound, waves a couple of feet, but more westerly winds there at the mouth of Cook Inlet, northeast of Kodiak, and on the south side of the Kenai Peninsula, 30 to 35 knots, waves anywhere from near 9 feet there at the mouth of Cook Inlet to 10 to 13 feet as you get offshore into the Northwest Gulf. On Sunday, Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula will generally see winds from the southwest around 30 knots, though as high as 40 knots possible north of Cold Bay in an advanced frontal system, or I should say just behind the frontal system. And we are looking for waves of 10 to 15 feet on the Pacific and Western Gulf side, anywhere from around 7 feet Bristol Bay to 11 feet there north of Cold Bay. And then on Monday, winds will generally continue out of the southwest or south at 20 to 30 knots, waves running around 13 feet on the North Pacific and Western Gulf side, and 6 to 9 feet on the Bering side. Sunday's winds will be 40-knot southerly gales across the central and eastern Aleutians, waves 20 to 25 feet or so on the North Pacific side, but then in the shelter of the islands, we are looking for waves to come down to around 14, 15 feet. And for Monday, winds across the region remain generally out of the south, anywhere from 35 upwards to 45 knots there west of Adak. Waves, though, coming down a bit, generally around, say, 15 to near 20 feet on the North Pacific side, and generally 8 to 12 feet on the Bering side. And those winds continue there in the open waters of the eastern Bering, 30 to 40 knots there at St. Paul, St. George, up to St. Matthew. And that's going to cause the ice to shift around a bit there along the southwest and western coast. Winds will have a tendency to be a little more mixed on Monday. Southerly winds continue, though, 30 to 40 knots, especially from around Nunavik Island southward where the water is open. But northeast to east winds coming in there off of the ice there in Norton Sound and just southeast of St. Lawrence. Along the Arctic coast, winds will generally be out of the east-northeast, and that extends down along the northwest coast at 20 knots before winds turn northerly there in the lower Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, picking up to about 30 knots north side of St. Lawrence. And then for Monday, winds will be as high as 30, 45 knots there, the eastern Arctic coast, Kaktovik. And then out toward the northwest coast, winds will be out of the northwest and north, 15 to 20 knots running down through the Bering Strait and easterly off of Nome there, north of St. Lawrence. And a quick check, the warm front will be working its way through the interior overnight early on Sunday and continue to press eastward toward the Alcan border by Sunday late afternoon. This is going to cause a mix of precipitation, heavier snow, and some freezing rain there across central and south central areas.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.